Okay, another site that we're going to look at during the Philadelphia campaign in the summer, or it would be the fall of 1777, is this site right behind me. Now, what you see behind me is a memorial. This is part of the battlefield. The battlefield extends, I would say, about 3 or 4 football fields in length. Okay, this is the Paoli battlefield, or the Battle of Paoli Tavern, or the Paoli Massacre, as they sometimes put it. Now, this was generally where Anthony Wayne's Pennsylvanians, 1,500 strong, encamped on September 20th, 1777, after the Battle of the Clouds. Now, normally, this area was all farmlands. It would have been exactly the way it is today. Now, I'm going to spend about 3 videos on this area. It is very historic. All right, basically a little history about what we're seeing right now is that these 2 cannons here were made at Warwick Furnaces for the American cause. These are naval guns. These aren't the guns they would have pulled. Now, these guns are big. They're probably around 12-pounders, or maybe a little bit bigger than that. These were found in the French Creek near Warwick Furnaces. I guess during that time, they were producing arms for the Continental cause, and the British were in the area, probably scouting out the area, and the Americans dumped these guns in French Creek, and that's where they were found, around possibly the 1880s or the late part of the 19th century, that these guns were found. The Paoli Massacre, as they said, was an interesting and decisive British victory. Now, we're going to go into that in a little bit, but I wanted to show you behind me here. You see a stone wall, a fence, and some trees and so forth, bushes. This is where the mass grave is. There's a mass grave of 54 or 53 individuals that were killed on this battlefield, that lay dead on the battlefield. These weren't wounded. These were actual dead. A little bit of history is that, we'll get into it, is they were buried here by the local inhabitants. Now, on September 20th, 1777, Anthony Wayne's forces separated from Washington. Now, Washington's main army, after the Battle of the Clouds, what we were talking before, there was a nor'easter for about 2 days in which all the ammunition and their supplies were destroyed. Now, they had to go up the Lancaster Pike to Philadelphia. They had to cross the Schuylkill River. This is Washington's main force at Matson's Ford near Conshohocken. Now, this was the only place to ford the Schuylkill River. They forded that, and they ended up in Philadelphia, and at which time they headed northwest towards Reading, Pennsylvania, to replenish their supplies. Now, Washington was smart. He knew the British were in this general area. He wanted to harass them, to keep them away from him. Washington wanted to flee to Reading without being trailed by the British. So he left General Anthony Wayne's division of between the 1st and 11th Pennsylvania divisions in this general area encamped to harass the British baggage, and to basically keep them away from Washington, and try at least to halt them for a little bit from going into Philadelphia. Now, we're a little farther from Brandywine and some of these other battles. We're getting closer to Philadelphia, and that's where the British were heading. They were heading towards Philadelphia to take the capital. Now, we're in Malvern, Pennsylvania. That's where the Paoli battlefield is. Now, another interesting aspects about the area is, like I said, it looks exactly like it would have been back then. This area was restored. The fences are absolutely exactly like they were back then. The sight lines are exactly like they were back then. The tree lines, everything basically is exactly like it was. Now, on the late afternoon of September 20th, Anthony Wayne's division entered this area with baggage and 2 field pieces. He brought 2 pieces of cannon, and he also brought some Continental artillerists to man these pieces. He had some light dragoons in the area, and also he had, like I said, he had the Pennsylvanian soldiers. Now these guys would have been in Continental uniforms. They wouldn't have been raggly-taggly guys. They had the typical blue and white facing. They had buckskin breeches, and they had most likely buckskin boots. They had good boots and soles. These guys were pretty well advanced. They fought a lot at Brandywine. They fought over at the Battle of the Clouds. They fought near Boot Tavern. Anthony Wayne's divisions were tough, hardened Continental soldiers. These guys knew how to fight, and they were extremely experienced Pennsylvania soldiers. They weren't militia. Now, also talking about the militia, Major Smallwood's, William Smallwood's militia of 2,100 militia troops, they were still with the Army. They had been at Brandywine. They had followed the Army. Now, they were stationed near the White Horse Tavern, where one of my other videos was filmed, when Anthony Wayne was camped in this general area. Now, he led them there in case there was an attack, or if there was any movement by the British, there would be at least a militia in that general area. So the White Horse Tavern from here is about maybe 3 miles away. Major Smallwood's division consisted of locals. These militia were inexperienced soldiers. They had what they had from home. They had basically somewhat of good leadership, but they were very unskilled at what they did, militia. But they were an invaluable force for Washington. Now, on the afternoon of September 20th, 1777, Anthony Wayne encamped here. Now, what Washington did was take all the tents with him. He wanted to lighten Anthony Wayne's load, so basically the tents were left behind. Now, the soldiers during this time, on both sides, British and Americans, they constructed wigwams or teepees. Now, what these were was basically a structure where they took sticks and they put them in an X pattern, and they tied them at the top, and they put local branches and leaves or whatever they had on top of it as a temporary shelter. Now, this is what would have been here during the battle. They would have had wigwams here. There was no tents in the area. Now, off to my left, along the ridge line, we're going to pan up there, is where the baggage would have been. This would have been a caravan of drivers. It would have been horses. It would have been different guys with different wagons that would usually have provisions on it. It would have their cooking material, but not the tents. Tents were left behind. And basically, Anthony Wayne's Pennsylvanians were all over the field and back of me. A little bit more history is that during the night of September 20th, there was a local blacksmith in the area. Now, he was forced by the British to disclose this area. The British probably knew that the Americans were in the area because of spies. Spies were very common. Either a spy was on the American side loyalist, or he was a British loyalist. Now, during this time was about almost a 50-50 chance whether you were a spy on British or Americans. And it wasn't very hard to find this encampment. So the British were encamped near the General Anthony Wayne Inn today on, I guess it's the Lancaster Pike and Paoli Pike right at the split there. They were stationed near there, and they got wind that Anthony Wayne was in this area. So basically what they did, they came up with a plan to make a nighttime raid against this camp. What they did was there was about 3 or 4 battalion of about 1,500 British soldiers that were amassing along the roadway up further away. I would say about 4 miles away during the nighttime. Now, this would have been a nighttime raid between 10 and 12 midnight. During that time, the Pennsylvanians here were encamped. There would have been fires going. There would have been chit-chat. There would have been tobacco smoking. Some people would be sleeping, and other soldiers would just be usually just doing what they did at night, just like normal. They didn't expect anything to happen to them on this battlefield. Now, the British had their light infantry. These guys were the first guys in. Now, the British used their light infantry quite well. The British light infantry had round hats cocked on one side. They had short red jackets so they can move. And they had light equipment. Usually what they did, they carried a bayonet, they carried their rifle, and a cartridge box, and that was about it. They didn't have backpacks or anything like that on there. So they were the first in when they attacked Anthony Wayne. Now the divisions that we see came in, that the British were the 42nd and 40